So one of the reasons I want to do this is because I've really always liked the idea of video as a medium for storytelling, and I I've written a few novels and have really fallen in love with that, and just have always liked the idea of being able to tell a story visually without saying anything, if that makes sense. Where it's like if I can get someone to feel something based on the music and the shots and just whatever that just seems cool. That seems fun to me. And so um, I had a point finding the story. That's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about with these videos. Do I just shoot random stupid stuff and hope a story comes from that, or do I plan out a story and try and execute it? And with writing, there's two kinds of writers. There's discovery writers and outline writers. I A discovery writer is someone who they just sit down and start writing, and the story just unfolds as you're writing it. My first three novels, um, I discovery wrote, and just that's kind of how I naturally think. Where it's almost like with the Peter trilogy, it's like I wasn't writing a story. I was writing things that have already happened, and I was just discovering it. And it was almost like digging a mine, where it's like I would go this way, and it's like, oh no, that's not what happened. This is what happened, and then I would end up in the story. Um, I'm For William Till, I discovery outline wrote. So outline writing is you have a story idea, you know where you want to end, and then you just write an outline that gets you from point A to B to C all the way until you have your story. That doesn't sound fun to me, but I also wanted to write faster, and so what I did was I discovery outlined, where I knew the final scene. I just, from the moment I had finished book one of Peter, the first Peter book, I had an idea for if I ever wrote William Till, this would be the last scene. And I had written it down. I knew exactly how it ended. I knew the final words of the book, if there was going to be a book. And so that was my end. And then I knew where he started, because he's in Peter. And so what I did was I just took those two and just discovery wrote. And as soon as I had an idea, it would be a bullet. And I would stay out of writing dialogue unless there was a line, specific line that I liked. And I would just, and this happens, and this happens, and this, and just kind of discover the story, but keep it high level at an outline level. And then I had my outline, and then I could write. And a chunk of what I ended up writing was a deviation from the outline, but at that point, I just had to do it. Um, But for the most part, I stuck to the outline, and I was able to map out that story a lot faster by discovery outlining. Um, Fast forward, I guess fast forward, when Heidi was going through treatment 7 years ago, something like that. 6 years, I don't know. Um, when she was going through treatment, um, she would go to bed early. Just the chemo would wipe her out, and so I would be alone from like 7:30 till whenever I would go to bed. And I remember thinking, okay, I can just waste my time away and escape and watch movies and TV or whatever, or I can actually do something. And so I had this idea. I'm going to get nerdy for a minute. So with web design, a lot of websites are built on databases, and databases just like an Excel spreadsheet. And there's columns and rows, and um, you can change values for different things. So I had this idea of a database where each column was a location in space, like Earth, Mars, Venus, whatever. And each row was a ship. And if the ship had a number 1 in Earth, that means that ship was on Earth. If it had a 2, it was traveling from Earth to Mars. And if it was a 3, it was in Mars. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's basically all these ships that are records and databases that are traveling in space, which are just numbers in a database. I had that idea. Not a really awesome idea, but bear with me. And so what I ended up doing was I set up a database with those records, and then every minute I had the database update where if the ship was going from 1 to 3, it would go to the next thing. So it would go from 1 to 2, now it's in space, and then from 2 to 3, that ship made it to Mars. And I was like, yay, I made like a little whatever stupid thing. And then I was like, well, it'd be kind of cool if that ship was carrying cargo. And so I made another database where it's like ship number 1 has cargo 1, 5 of them. And I'll just call cargo 1 water. And so I would have ship 1 on Earth. It would add water to its cargo database, go into space for a minute, and then go to Mars. And so I created this little, and then it would go back. And so I created this little closed system of these like 100 ships traveling from Earth into space to Mars, into space to Jupiter, into space to Eris, it's a planet, into space, back to Earth or whatever. And it was just looping. And then it's just this dumb little experiment. And I was like, well, it's just numbers in a database. It'd be cool to kind of see this thing, like see it. And so I created a web page that was all the records, and I gave them names because ships need names. So it's like ship, whatever the name was, Shippy, is on Earth, and then the page would update. This ship is in space traveling to Mars. This ship is on Mars, and so I had this visual of the database that I had created. I know, still lame. Bear with me. Then I was like, well, I would like to be a ship instead of just these automated things. I think it'd be cool if like I could have my own little ship in this universe. And so I made a new record. I made a form on the web page where I could tell the database where I wanted my ship to go to. So it's this dumb little form. And it was like, okay, I want to go to Mars. And so I would do a little drop down menu, click Mars. Wait a minute, I would be in space. Wait a minute, I would be on Mars. And I was like, well, that's cool. I should be able to load things onto my ship. And so I kept adding these little elements to it, and then ended up making this text-based video game that's essentially just a website that's really complex, and kept making it, kept expanding. And then I was like, well, this is just like white and text. Like Mars should look like something. And so I like designed it out a little bit, and Mars had a look, and then Earth had a look. And then I was like, well, I want to like sit in my ship, like, and know that I'm in my ship. I don't want to just like look at a screen. And so I made a page for the cockpit. And so while you're in your ship, you're moving. And so I made a stars background, and the stars kind of have like the Star Trek streaming thing while you're traveling. You get to your location, then the planet appears, and you leave. And it turned into like, okay, well, I'm on Earth. Like, there should be a store for me to like buy the goods. And so I was like, well, wait, what are the goods? And so I came up with water, energy cells, titanium, all these different things that you can only get at Earth that Mars and the other location wants. And so then I was like, well, I need money. These things need to cost something. And so I created money, and everything costs whatever. And so I'd buy the goods, and then I would travel to Mars, sell the goods. I would buy the goods that Mars sold, travel to Earth, or maybe I'd travel to Jupiter or Eris, and then sell and sell and sell. And this was online, and some other people found it, and they were like, this is kind of fun, can we play? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, can we talk to you? And I was like, there's not a chat feature. And they're like, there should be a chat feature. So I made a chat feature, and now we're chatting with these strangers who found this website that I made, and we're playing this game. And more people are playing, and there's like 20 people playing this little website game that I made. And one guy was like, this trading thing is fun, but like it's kind of boring. Like there's no point, there's no story, there's no missions or anything. And I was like, missions, story, I love doing that. So I wrote a story to go along with the game, and I wrote missions like, hey, you need to buy 10 waters and sell them to Mars, and that's your mission, and you'll get an upgrade or whatever. And then I was like, what's an upgrade? What could you upgrade? And then I thought, well, I'm in a ship. Ship needs armor or whatever, or gear. And so I thought of this idea of having ship modifications, I call them, or ship mods. And there's an armor class, or utility, weapon, sensor, engine, shields. And based on the missions you complete, you get gear for your ship. The different gear does different things, like you can increase your cargo hold, because I had to make a cargo hold. People wanted to attack each other, so I made a mechanic where you could fight other players, or you could fight those little numbers, the automated ships that are flying around, because they're still in there, and now you can see them. And so now there's gear that you can get, and the gear have stats, and people are making different builds for their ships to do the different things they want to do, and people have a bunch of this mod, but they don't want it, so I need to make a mechanic to sell the mods. But they want to be able to sell mods to other people, so I made an auction house so people could sell gear and items to other players. And then, what happened then? And now it's getting bigger and bigger, and there's like 50 people playing this thing. And it's starting to like get really bogged down because the server I've got the site on is this crummy little small thing. And so I got a bigger server, and now it's working better, and now people are playing more, and they're like, we want more lore. Lore is story for you non-nerds. They're like, more lore. And you, if you're a nerd, you spell it MOAR. More lore. And so I'm writing more missions, and the story's getting bigger and bigger, and eventually it's like it's grown into this thing, and there's like 100 players on it. But like the artwork is just awful, because I'm a creative, but I'm not an artist. I can't draw. I can vision cast and be like, this is what I want it to look like. But then the part of me who would actually draw it is like, I'm not able to do that. And I'm like, well, this is what it needs to be. And I'm like, too bad. And I'm like, but we know what we want it to look like. And I'm like, that's cool, but we can't do that. And I'm like, well, then what are we doing here? And I'm like, I've been reading Lord of the Rings with my youngest daughter, so that's my Smeagol moment there, precious. And so I get to the point where it's like, okay, I need some more, like, I need actual artwork in this thing. And so I start a Kickstarter campaign to raise money for artwork. And we meet the goal, we pass the goal. And so I hire some artists, and we make the artwork, and they're able to do the thing that I wanted, but I couldn't do. And they do it, and it looks awesome. So now it's a full, real game. Gemini Station, that's the game. You can play it. It's real. But in the midst of all this, the thing that people like the most is the story. It's a bunch of missions that are basically just go do the thing so you can get experience and level up, because you can level up and get mods. But there's also like several like main stories that weave through the whole game. And the best feedback I got was about the stories. People love the stories. And so I was thinking, Heidi hates video games. She'll never play a video game. But these stories, this is me circling back to writing, the story I think is really good. I love it. And so what I've started doing is taking the story from the game and reworking it as a novel, a series of novels, possibly 11 novels. And so it's my test to see if can I actually write? Like, am I actually a decent writer, or do people just like Peter Pan and I'm a hack? So I discovery wrote book one, just like, this is how I write. I'm gonna write book one. Discovery wrote it. It was easy because I'm following the story from the game already. I changed a few things because it gave me an opportunity to change a few things that I wanted to. So book one is done. You haven't seen it because it's in its like second draft, and I'm really wanting to spend time on this one. In the meantime, I had an idea for book two, and that I did not discovery wrote. I did not I made an outline for that one, and I like stuck hard to the outline where it's like this and then this and this. It wasn't my discovery outlining like I talked about before. I just tried to do an outline because I wanted to see how that worked, because apparently most real authors do that. Screw that. That wasn't awesome. I went back to discovery writing a lot of that then too. And then I was like, well, the outlining was fast. Discovery writing feels more like me. I'm going to try this discovery outlining. And so book three, that's right, I have 3.5 books done. Done, first drafty. I discovery outlined the entire book in an afternoon while I was doing yard work. Just like raking leaves and some other stuff. We had a tree fall down. Branch broke and like fell on our roof. I'm not going to tangent again. I was chopping it up and fixing it up and wrote a book. And so I had this outline for an entire book that I figured out in half a day. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I figured out a book. And I liked the story. So the idea, my point, so about these books. So I've got 3 characters, and it's following the events of this world, following 3 characters over the course of 9 to 11 books. And my idea is to have, it's from the perspective of each character. Book 1, his name's Gate. Book 2, her name is Veronica. Book 3, his name is Baron. And it switches off, where they each get a book, and then there's a pause. Book 4 is about all that stuff, but different perspective. And then book 3 is back to Gate, Veronica, Baron, a pause, Gate, Veronica, Baron, 3, 6, 9. 3 trilogies with 2 interlude books, 11. That's math. And so that's my plan. So my reason for telling you all this is I have no idea, but I believe what I said earlier was, should I make videos and find the story, or should I come with a plan of something to say? And I had no plan. And this was fun. Cool. So I also had a lot of caffeine today. So I think what I'm going to do now is work on my books. Good night.